Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Live with Littledata. This week, we're covering a special Valentine's Day special. We're looking at whether we're in love with GenAI for email marketing. And to debate that with me, I've got along three experts who will run very interesting companies with an angle in this game, helping use AI in email marketing, or machine learning, as Phil prefers to call it. So let's first of all introduce our guests, and then we can get straight into the debate of the day. So, Lou, why don't you tell us a bit about what you're doing with AI and email marketing?
Sure. Great to see you again, Ed. My name is Lou Mincer. I'm the CEO founder of Grid and Pixel. And what we do is make email marketing actually fun and insanely effective and as hands-free as we possibly can. Grid and Pixel is a Shopify app. It's built for Shopify. It's available in the App Store. It's a free download. We are also a featured app on the Klaviyo App Store, as the integration store, as they call it. And I've been having a lot of fun helping tons of brands get online, sending personalized email with great automations and flows. And we use a lot of GenAI. So I'm excited for this conversation. It's good to see everybody.
Thank you. Phil, tell us a bit about Pass and Pass AI.
Okay, so hello everybody. As Ed said, Phil Manson, founder of an agency called Pass. We started out sort of 5-6 years ago now. Really took the Klaviyo space in Europe and helped build it out as it is. What we've been doing over the last year is really saying the space is crowded, the inbox is even more crowded. How do we start to really generate some really highly personalized email comms at scale, and that's what has led us down into launching Pass AI in the last few months, and some really interesting case studies that are coming off the back of that, but working really closely with all those data points, and really more importantly in that zero party data. So for us, the personalization comes from the data, so that's the kind of angle we take, and yeah, that's what we're up to at the moment.
Awesome. And lastly, Sam, tell us a bit about Magicals.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for having me on. About Magicals. So the idea was born because I also have a retention marketing agency called Revenue Labs. And I remember right at the beginning when we got started, far before I knew what client boundaries were, I was asked by a client at 12 a.m. my time to ship out an email urgently because of a bit of a blunder that we've made. And I remember thinking, wow, it's 12. And my background was in copywriting. So obviously I didn't have the design ability, etc., to do it at the time. So I literally, out of pain, thought to myself at that moment, what if there was a tool, and I wish there was a tool, but I could just click a button, have, a very high quality email created for the brand owner that I could just ship out and send. And it's crazy to think that that's exactly what we're building 3 years later. So that is, in a nutshell, what Magicals does. It is all about email creatives in the best possible way that we can create and generate in seconds.
So I think the obvious first question to ask is that you kind of the why now question. We've been talking, we've all been in this marketing space for a few years, and personalization has been a buzzword. Well, I think definitely 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So what is it that's advanced about Gen AI that's made that possible, or perhaps not just possible, but actually valuable, and more valuable than just an expert copywriter or a marketer doing it manually? Lou, perhaps you want to go first on that one.
Sure. So look, it has Open API, and ChatGPT has only been out for less than 2 years. And the foundational models have developed in profound ways since then. I'll give you an example. Like last year, I couldn't ask ChatGPT which Google font is closest to Futura. It wouldn't be able to give me an answer. yesterday I issued that exact same query, and the answer is Barlow. It was able to figure that out in a matter of seconds. And so the difference is, for years and years, AI has been fantastic at segmenting lists, right? Think Facebook lookalike audiences, things like that. But now AI is getting super good at generating on-brand creative in addition to working with the list, right? You can do things like select colors, select fonts, select products, develop background images, strip off background images, turn it into video. And so it's super powerful, but also it's more accessible than ever, right? Because not only do you have this voice interface, there's also a chat interface, but most importantly, there's an API interface that is effectively intelligence as a service that you can leverage throughout that marketing automation stack to accomplish many, many things that used to require human intelligence to do. Now we can fall back to machine intelligence, and it's never grumpy, it's never tired, and it cranks on output.
Yeah. So so a lot of the value is actually just being able to tie a whole chain of production together, be it not, as you say, what was previously a human operation to take copy here, paste into here, go and find the, as you say, the appropriate images to put in the image. We can now, basically, AI can take that whole production chain and automate it.
I think that's a red idea, and it's a bit of a foot race right now because I think it's obvious that full end-to-end management of email marketing flows and campaigns on behalf of a brand is coming. That is the golden ring that everyone is reaching out, trying to grasp. No one's gotten there yet, but it's a very, very exciting time because there's a lot of people building towards that. And once we get there, it's going to be such a powerful tool that really democratizes the ability to have fantastic, personalized, compelling, productive, profitable email marketing.
So Phil, tell us a bit, because I think you were expressing doubts earlier that we're kind of there, particularly in terms of is the AI good enough for a brand just to let it rip versus wanting to have control over that. So how do you think what's needed to advance the last couple of years in order for you to launch the product you now have?
So I think there's two things. One is the technical movement that we've seen at a very cost-effective price. Secondly, that there's a want to do it. I think for us, certain brands still want to have that final approval. That they still need to refine what the guardrails are. And when you have maybe a brand owner that's very explicit about certain keywords to use, not use, there can be a reticence to trial it. We're seeing some really strong results, but we're having to get over different barriers with different businesses. And I think there is a nervousness about the jobs market that comes with this. So I think there's also a skills gap, certainly in some of the brands that we've spoken to, that you in effect change from needing an email marketing manager to deploy emails or set up flows and automations to really someone that looks after customer data. And I think that's still a transition that needs to happen in a number of brands to really leverage it. Otherwise, I think we're just going to end up with a bit of emperor's new clothes and people just, yeah, I've got AI, I'm using it, but they don't really know what value it's adding. Is it adding efficiency? Is it improving the customer journey? Or is it just another tool set that's going to kind of come and go over the next couple of years? I think it's here to stay. I just think it needs to be used correctly. And I think a lot of brands need to get on board with it and trial it and prove how it works for their particular business case.
Yeah. So Sam, you're saying with Magicals, you had this idea 3 years ago. What's actually changed those 3 years that's made Magicals possible?
Yeah, great question, Ed. I think there are three main things really that have made something like this possible. And I think nowadays, with more and better open source models that have been released, the models are getting better and better at actually generating assets of creatives. And nowadays, you don't need big budgets for this. You can literally just take one of these open source models and you can train your own data on it, and it's pretty much ever expansive. So that would be the first thing. I think the second thing is that typically the tools and the software products that we need to make creatives are usually complex, right? But now with the recent advancements in AI, we can actually build entire software platforms almost as good as Figma, but for certain silos and niches. So in this case, for email marketing, for example. So it's made it a lot more accessible and it's reduced the complexity. And finally, reasoning is the key word here. So nowadays you have multimodal models that understand both text and image as well as the fact that reasoning models that can spend time, they can spend a lot more time thinking instead of giving you just a basic response. So the reasoning has gotten a lot better. So these three factors kind of amalgamated together has made it possible. And it's actually insane how surfing this wave, how powerful it is, because it's almost as we're needing things, there's advancements in AI that are making things possible that we've conceptualized, saying, oh, I wish this is possible. So the speed of development is insane.
Yeah. So to go back to the original question, like, are we in love? I guess the question is, should agencies be in love with Gen AI? And perhaps, Phil, I just want to take you up on that previous point. You were saying, obviously, there needs to be a sort of people change in the industry. To what extent should agencies be worried that you're replacing them? To what extent are you worried that you're going to get replaced? Or is it really a tool to augment what an agency would already be doing with email marketing?
We're changing our whole business model to leverage it. So I firmly believe in the next 18 months that the Klaviyo partner space will be unrecognisable. And I say that as one of their leading partners, in that a lot of the basic groundwork that we used to do is now there out the box. I think brands are looking for partners not to just deploy generic email comms, but to really enhance the whole customer experience. And you can have some very good base level activity out of the box, but I think it's then the nuances of actually the analysis that goes into explicit customers' individual journeys. That's where agencies have to develop more of a consultancy model, which is what we're doing. So you're partnering with the brands. You'll say, well, the model's done the 80%. We're now going to help you do the extra 20% on top. So I think you have to kind of shift the methodology from we're just going to pilot high, sell as many flows, many campaigns as possible, and it comes into that optimization. And I think that's where experts still have a really good place in the market. What I don't think is going to be viable medium term is generic email marketing agencies. It really has to come back into looking at all of the zero-party data. What's the right data to capture? What's the right data to action upon? And what's the right channel to action it upon?
So, Lou, to take up on your previous point, you say obviously we're building towards this goal where email marketing is maybe a totally automated thing. You just simply, as a brand owner, you can say, "Hey, I want to be communicating this product or this theme to my customers. Figure it out." Surely that means agencies get cut out of the equation, doesn't it?
No, I don't think so. I think that Gen AI and everything that's happening in terms of like autopilot for email, to put a label on it, will actually make agencies more scalable, more profitable, and more effective. It's basically like an incredible new tool in their toolbox. And so what that allows them to do is more with less, right? I talk to a lot of agencies, maybe it's 5 people supporting 10 or 15 brands. Now they can become 5 people supporting 30 or 40 brands, right? And so it is a scale factor that allows you to do more faster, and that enables you to help more brands without increasing your fixed costs by hiring more and more people, right? And so what an app like Grid and Pixel does is go very, very deep in email marketing, doing the kind of things that would literally take 10,000 clicks to do in the Klaviyo UI, right? Producing over 150 fully baked email templates for all of your flows. We can do that in under 5 minutes, right? That's not possible for a human to do without getting carpal tunnel syndrome, right, in one of their wrists. And so just the reduction in clicks alone is a majestic and huge time saver, right? And so that's only part of it, though, because while I go very, very deep and very, very hard at email marketing, email flows, email campaigns, I'm like a horse with blinders on. That's all my app focuses on, right? But there are many, many more pieces to the puzzle that is a great marketing email or marketing stack in e-commerce, right? You need good data egress, you need identity resolution, you need a pop-up form or a quiz, you need a loyalty program, you need a fantastic theme. And so that is what I see. The agency is going to evolve to become more of the quarterback, right? Who is overseeing all of these different apps that are taking advantage of GenAI to kind of facilitate all the different pieces of the marketing stack. But I think the agency will be in charge. I think it will be the quarterback that gets all the apps to work together, which is really important because now, we run the entire email marketing program for over 1,200 brands now. And I can see very, very clearly that the brands that have an agency, it works better. My product works better when there's an agency in the room. So
Yeah.
I love agencies. I want to work with agencies more because it's like having a grown-up who knows what the left hand and the right hand are doing, right? And that is more effective. It can get everything to work together and work better. So for me, it's like, agencies became better when they had computers. Then they got even better when they had the internet. Then they got even better when they had cell phones. Now they're going to be even better now that they have, intelligence as a service.
Yeah. Well, I think it's to Phil's point about, agencies evolving into expert consultants and actually, exactly deciding which of these apps can add value rather than, as you say, actually doing the drudge work of copy paste. But Sam, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think on that, it's actually understanding, and this is again, I think where some agencies will fall over is they've got their preferred tech stack, and that's all they go and push out. Whereas actually, it's about understanding that particular brand's history, marketing vision, proposed tech stack in the future, and really aligning that skill set. So it shouldn't be that an agency comes in or a consultant comes in and says, we need to pull this product out, that product out. It's about saying, well, what does that product add to how does that product add to the customer experience? How does it enhance it? How does it improve the bottom line? And then really refining that. So there isn't one size fits all tech stack out there. It's about those individual nuances and getting the best out of them. That will then allow us to find that right product fit.
Well, without getting dragged into the kind of best tech stack for Shopify, that's an endless topic. But Sam, I just want to pick up on that point about, as Lou said, like there are other bits you need your product. So on top of obviously you're integrating with Klaviyo to actually sort of send the emails and so on. But your product's all about generating that visual content and that copy within the email. Like, so what are the data points that help your Magicals develop a better email, a better, higher performing email?
Yeah, so just to kind of also go over the topic here, I'm going to get to that in a second, but I think it's no secret that e-commerce is getting harder and harder. Platforms like Facebook are now they're saturated in some way. And every single year there are more people flooding into the market. It is getting more and more expensive to compete. So I think the future of e-commerce in general will be brands are going to be forced to be leaner. With the development of AI, in my opinion, what's really going to happen is that you're going to have founders with very lean teams around them that leverage platforms like Magicals, like what Lou's creating, Grid Pixel, like these channels to really supercharge them with a creative mind on top that is helping pilot that specific division. So in this case, you're going to have the agency, but the agency is going to be forced to evolve, not in the way that they are now, but they're creating, they're basically a factory of creation. I think the apps and the advancements in AI will help the creation process, but then nothing can take away the conceptualized mind. So, you needed somebody to think about an airplane to create the airplane, right? That thinking of strategy, the breakthrough will always be coming from humans, in my opinion. AI will supercharge the ability to bring that into reality much, much faster. So brands will be pretty much unlocked to be able to scale faster and faster with the assets that will be created with AI.
Yeah, maybe. I do actually think the problem is, and there is a time in future, maybe not that far away, 5-10 years ago, where AI actually might get pretty damn good at strategy as well. But I definitely, within the scope of the next couple of years, I agree with you. But anyway, so there was that's a great point. But you were going to go and talk about data points for kind of Magicals, like what is it that would make the email sing? What is it that gives the AI the ability to decide this is the right content to be pitching to this customer?
Of course. So there's two parts to this. The first part is right now we're simply focusing on good design. Now, how do we define good design? When we have an API that plugs inside of Klaviyo, we obviously have an understanding through that API of what is actually doing good and what isn't doing good, right? With that, it will learn, and this is where the machine learning comes in. When it learns from what is doing well and what isn't, we can then replicate that within Magicals, which is the functionality that we're building. It will evolve on its own with its learning. So let's say you set up an A/B test inside of Klaviyo, and let's say version A performs better. These apps now can learn that version A performs better, and it can really break down the granular level. Why is version A performing better? And then it can hypothesize based on that. But because now you're shortening the time of creation, you can make it much, much faster to get to a real conclusion that actually moves the needle. If that answers it.
Cool, great answer. Phil, what about you? You obviously talked at the beginning about the kind of the very much the need to plug in zero-party data to get good outcomes here. What are the sort of things you've seen that enhance the ability of you to generate the meaningful personalization?
Yeah, so what I think is, as a baseline, is useful to say is we don't need additional data points to at least start that personalization journey. Those broader learnings of, okay, this is a new subscriber to, or a new visitor to the website, they've given us their email permit. We can make some assumptions based on browsing history. But where we're seeing real benefits is leveraging zero-party data apps like Octane AI for quizzes, and using those data points to then ingesting those data points and using that to change the content. So although we're not looking overall creative, we're looking at those 2-3 paragraphs of content that go into these automated emails. I mean, I'm sure all of us on this call can recognize a Klaviyo abandoned basket email from a brand simply because everyone seems to use the same line or 2 lines of copy. We're taking that away and using the AI to generate that on a one-to-one basis. So the more data points we can give it, the more learnings we can give it, even better, it continues to evolve and improve. So we can take APIs of air quality in a certain area, use that to drive the final content. So it does come down to then just looking at that, and to everyone's point, it just keeps getting better and better and more human. The first couple of iterations we saw was a bit too robotic, probably a little bit too much on the American English side of the language for this side of the pond. We can then retrain them. It's true, it happens. We can retrain the model, and we've got it running out in Australia, and it needs different nuances from the Australian market to the UK market to the US market. So I think this is my earlier point. Certainly in the short term, we still need that human interaction to validate the outputs.
Lou, what about you? What do you feel like when you Grid and Pixel sort of deciding which images to serve? What are the data points that matter in terms of making that decision?
So we all know that AI is only as good as the data that you feed into it. And so the key is feeding as much data as possible, right? And for me, that falls into 3 big buckets. So there's customer engagement data. That is, what did people look at? What did they browse? What did they buy? Then there's the real-time intent signals. So that's like added to cart abandonment, and these life cycle moments, right? They're super important because that is how you convert emails to revenue with flows. And then finally, there's the brand specific preferences. So visual style, messaging tone, fonts, colors, things like that. And if you queue it up right and give AI all the data, and then let it start making some well-informed decisions, I found that's very, very good. Sometimes you need more than one bite of the apple. And so you end up building in checks and revisions, and it's an iterative process that gets better and better over time. And I think you can push the envelope quite far right now. The key that prevents you from going too far is keeping a human in the loop, right? Nobody wants stuff going out without review. And so you just have to have a review checkpoint in there. And if you make that review checkpoint as frictionless as possible, well, then you'll be more successful, and you'll see people adopting it easier. If they can just, look on their phone, swipe, click a button, and that email will get dispatched, or that creative is approved, or that flow goes live, then the pace of business can be increased, which honestly is like one of the best parts about AI is you crush through work so much faster than you could before. And I can sit down and reply to 100 emails in like 10 minutes now. I can sit down and design 100 emails in an hour.
Yeah.
I wasn't able
Unfortunately,
to do
AI
that
can
before.
also generate 100 emails, and so it's kind of like a war of send and reply. But yes,
Would you
That's
say
right.
that there needs to be a certain size to the customer database to make it, to return to create a decent ROI? Is there, what are you seeing with your brands? Do they need to be a certain maturity in their email development? What does it look like? Where's that kind of sweet spot? So you've done the basics, it's working. Now we can really light a fire under it and get going.
It's a great question. So like the big enterprises always have the advantage of more data, right?
Yeah.
And the smaller enterprises, SMBs, VSMBs, even mid-market, they have the advantage of being able to move faster and try new things and, just fly by the seat of their pants. But the good news now is there's a very robust API ecosystem in e-commerce. So any SMB that's running on Shopify and using Klaviyo to send email or SMS, right out of the box, has the ability to provide any app with the fire hose, all their customers, their complete order history, all their products, all their images, and then you combine that with the real-timey stuff of what are they looking at, what are they clicking on, and the delta between what a mom and pop shop can do and what Kylie Cosmetics can do, it is shrinking, and it is shrinking pretty fast. And it's not only due to Gen AI. A lot of it is due to all the infrastructure work that's happened over the last 4 or 5 years. Like the transatlantic cable in e-com is laid at this point, right?
Yeah.
Shopify's API ecosystem is phenomenal. And
Yeah.
Klaviyo's commitment to building out their API at the same speed and with the same veracity as they're building out their UI and trying to keep those in parity as much as possible creates this really data rich environment where even a small guy has way more capabilities than they did just a few years ago.
Yeah. It's a sorry, I was just
Good, Bill.
the interesting thing that I have in the back of my head and coming out of, I've been in this space for a long time. We've gone through the GDPR in Europe. Is the only bit that I'm not seeing people talk about is the impact on privacy and that data processing to a certain extent. It's kind of just glossed over a little bit as this is the shiny, and look at the growth, but maybe knowing what the EU can be like in the future, whether there's going to be some impacts on privacy and processing that will come from this in the future.
Possibly. I mean, like the global trade, we might, 2024 might have been the high tide of sort of data integrations, but hopefully not. I just want to make one plug for Littledata there, because Lou obviously was talking quite a lot about how they're basically knowing what the customer's browsing in a store and what they're adding to cart is a big signal on what you can use in personalization. And one of the things I think we don't talk enough about Littledata's Klaviyo integration is that yes, we directly you can use, for example, a product viewed event to trigger a browser abandonment flow, but also all those product view and adds to cart, they get added to the customer profile in a much more frequent way than they would do with Klaviyo's own Shopify integration. What that means is that if your AI algorithm is trying to understand which customers to push dog food to, they're much more likely to understand to know that someone's been browsing dog food on your site if you sell pet food. And so I think we sometimes underplay that sort of the interplay. I know, Lee, you've written a recipe on this, but kind of between what Littledata's doing and the actual delivery or generation of these personalized emails. I think final question just to wrap up. And I guess it's the elephant in the room is Klaviyo has been investing heavily in AI the last couple of years. They have huge resources now. They're definitely outspending all of the other sort of email marketing platforms on R&D. To what extent does their roadmap potentially clash with yours? To what extent are they the ones that are going to do this eventually, and to what extent do you think you can carve out a good niche with your app and an additional use case to what Klaviyo can do? Who wants to take that? Sam, perhaps you want to take that one first.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Ed. So here's my thoughts on Klaviyo, right? So when a company is at Klaviyo scale, they tend to move a lot slower than the pace of AI developing, pretty much, and AI companies that are coming out, right? So they have all the data that they need, but then they don't have the momentum, and I think that's really where the discrepancy is. So by the time that they build something, there's something much better out in the AI market with the speed that AI is moving and advancing, right? So ultimately, in this space, we all know that what AI is really doing is it's allowing and empowering startups to compete with more established companies and take on these big corps. So you can really carve out a niche and fit into that market a lot better than you could in the past. And if you look at AI, language models have been out for now 2 years. And I think what Klaviyo has specifically developed at the moment, it's mostly just sprinkled AI onto it to make the interfaces better rather than anything that significantly moves the needle, right? So there's more fear about them automating strategies than there is on design, which is what we're focusing more on. So this is just my 2 cents on the space.
Lou, I know you obviously got so similar. You edging a similar way in terms of helping the design side, and I totally agree with Sam's point that Klaviyo is more like used AI to enhance its own products. Do you see a potential clash?
No, I actually agree with those comments. My view is that Klaviyo is going through an incredible time right now in their own personal journey, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they've like doubled their headcount over the past year or so. And they just have a ton of fish to fry, right? They are trying to be all things to all brands, which is stretching them, from enterprise to SMB and everywhere in between, and they are locked up trying to deliver on a bunch of promises that have already been made, right? Like they've already written the checks. Now the checks got to get cashed. So they're very, very busy building towards that.
Yep.
And I think they are a very open ecosystem. And I love their ethos and mentality when it comes to like dealing with partners. A year and a half ago, when I was starting this business and building the app, I wasn't sure if Klaviyo was going to see what I was doing and squash me like a bug. And the answer is that's not their intent. Their intent is actually to enable partners like Grid and Pixel or Magicals and others to really build great applications that can extend the core Klaviyo functionality, because by doing that, they turn themselves into a bit more of a platform than just an app, right? Which is powerful for them. And then also they put themselves in a position to have higher KAV, right?
100%.
Klaviyo
Yeah.
attributed value, right? That is their mission in life, right? That is their number one mission, is to have higher
100%.
KAV. And so apps that make the creative better or make the editor better or make the email creation experience better or create higher throughput for brands and agencies, those are being welcomed with arms wide open, right? And so this is
Yeah.
a very exciting time
100%.
to partner with Klaviyo.
Yeah.
Hey, Lou,
Yeah.
and
Go
just
for
to
it.
jump in on this, like it was a very, very quick point. What Lou and I are building, we're not trying to replace Klaviyo.
Yeah.
We're trying to empower the use of Klaviyo and just make it faster, easier, and more efficient. So, like Lou said, I believe they have bigger fish to fry. And if they're, the little guys, the partners that can help build these things, then ultimately now they can get all the brands, because Klaviyo is known to be expensive to some degree, right? So if an app like this can empower the creation, so they cut out the need for any big expense in the middle, it makes them more available to a wider
Yeah.
net of market.
Yeah, the other part I was just going to follow up on Lou's point is that when you talk about other fish to fry, a lot of those fish are actually not Shopify. I mean, that Klaviyo strategically is trying to make their platform much more relevant to brands, to other kinds of businesses, not on Shopify, not even e-commerce. So I think all of us here are really focused in on that, kind of making it super easy for D2C brands on Shopify to make use of Klaviyo. That's cool. I'm not saying Klaviyo is abandoning that market. I'm just saying I don't actually think it's a whole load of their product development focus, because strategically they need to be able to move to other markets.
I think to add my two penneth, I see in the next 18 months the generic Klaviyo agency disappearing, as I said, because the setup, the data they have on existing brands, it will be able to spew out some base configuration flows with creative, and a couple of templates very easy just on the data they have. So I think the generic spray and play agencies will disappear. But we can see in some of the product developments, it's okay. Reviews being one, it ticks a box a little bit for an RFP. But actually, what brands really want is that granularity and additional features of a really custom integration with a dedicated app. And I think, to everyone's points earlier, I think what's been so refreshing about Klaviyo's work over the last 5-6 years that I've been working with them is the openness of the APIs to allow best of breed apps, challenges to come in and really increase the value of the data. And that we don't see Klaviyo as an email marketing platform, we see it as a data platform. Because actually email is just one of the outputs. The value for a customer is not in the emails they're sending, it's in the data they're holding and enriching using Littledata, and then the outputs that then allows through the creative work we can all do. So I think it's a mindset change, as we've said about it's about data, not email, and I think that's the marketing piece they've got to try and nail over the next 18 months as they go more and more into the enterprise and mid-market space.
Yeah, I totally agree, Phil. As you know, we've all been to the Klaviyo partner conferences, and that's what they always talk about, their product's data platform. But I think if you go and ask any actual brand owner in the space, they'll think Klaviyo is their email platform. So yeah, it's a perception they have to overcome. Okay, well,
again,
you're gone. One last point.
It comes to that transition of brands thinking about channels in silos to thinking about the whole customer experience, from zero-party data capture through to deployment of email, SMS, retargeting ads, whatever it may be. It needs to be aligned. All the data has to be aligned because you're focusing on one customer at the end of the day.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you all for your very interesting points. It's been a nice debate. So I think generally we are in love with GenAI. I think it's getting places, and
love is in the air.
Love is in the air. I reckon we can all, even if we're agency owners, we can all be less worried about it and embrace the brilliance it can do to stop, as Sam nicely put it, that sort of late night crisis where you have to sort of spend all hours trying to send out this damn email, and hopefully at some point that is just a click of a button. For most vision.
Pretty sure we've all been there once or twice.
Just last night.
Good. Well, thanks all for coming on the show, and hope to see you all soon. And thank you all for listening.
Guys.